York Met trade rumors are escalating. A report reveals a crazy trade update. And as you see on your screen now, this is the graphic for an ESPN article titled Ranking MLB's Top 50 Trade Deadline Candidates. And of course, as you saw in that intro video, one of them is Alex Bregman. Not only that, he is the #1 player on this ESPN list, and a trade fit that was listed was indeed our New York Mets. So we're of course going to talk about that, but also one of Bregman's teammates was listed as the #2 player. So we're going to go over that in a video later today, as well as a couple of other offensive bats that were listed on this list for the New York Mets as trade fits. But of course, today's focus is Alex Bregman. We're going to go over him. We're going to go over his great career. We're going to go over all the advanced metrics, what the experts are saying, and why Bregman would indeed be a fit for the New York Mets. What would it take for the Mets to go out and get him? We'll answer all these questions, and it's only on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. You know me, I'm a stats guy, and today's stat is that 70.2% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So please do me a favor, do us a favor here on Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk Alex Bregman. We're going to start it off with the experts who were talking about this. This, of course, being Kiley McDaniel and Jeff Passan of ESPN. I really like the way that they began this article because it talks about how this actually could be reality and how a couple of these deals were reported and rumored. Not necessarily going to happen, but it's not as if nobody is reporting them. People are reporting the possibility of these players being traded and these trade fits being potential candidates to go out and get them. So it's not like we're grasping at straws for Alex Bregman. It is possible that he could come to the New York Mets. They begin their article saying, quote, Major League Baseball's trade market is ever evolving. And to keep you updated, ESPN's Kiley McDaniel and Jeff Passan have put together a list of potential trade candidates that will be updated regularly depending on their performance, and that of the teams that could be involved in potential deals leading up to the July 31st trade deadline. Some of the players on the list are unlikely to be dealt, but at least are being discussed in potential deals. This, of course, being Alex Bregman. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Others might not be on the list now, but will be added in the future should their team's fortune change. Either way, this will be the most up-to-date accounting of where MLB's trade market stands. And this article, of course, ranking the players based on their value. If the teams were to trade for them, what would their value be? And Alex Bregman is ranked as the #1 player on this list. So let's go ahead and hear what these experts have to say about Bregman. What is the description? Why is he such a lucrative trade option? Well, they go on and say, quote, Bregman has been an elite big league hitter since he entered the league in 2016, but has leaned more into the power this year, with his highest isolated power since 2019. Most of his underlying power indicators, barrel rate, maximum exit velocity, average launch angle, and hard hit rate are all at career highs. His $40 million salary and the chance to opt into 2 more years at $40 million annually significantly shortens the list of teams that would take on his deal. And of course, the New York Mets are right on that list. As let's go ahead and check out his career numbers. They're really good, and he's having a great 2025. However, there is only a 10% chance, according to the article, of Alex Bregman being dealt right now. But the best fits include the Chicago Cubs, the Detroit Tigers, the New York Yankees, and of course our New York Mets, listed as the 4th team on that list. Unfortunately for Bregman, he is currently on the 10-day IL, but a basic bio on him is that he's 5'11", 190, so a smaller guy, double righty, age 31. Recently, of course, as you heard, signed to that 3-year, $120 million contract with the Boston Red Sox. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the career numbers. As you saw, those 2025 numbers look really solid with a basically 300 average, OBP nearing 400, and an OPS well above 900, 11 dingers, 35 RBIs, and he's just played over 50 games. He hasn't even played the 82 games that the Red Sox have played because he's been injured. It's been slightly above 50. So as for the career numbers with Bregman, as you see, he's a 2-time All-Star, 2018 and 2019, 2-time World Series champion, which is actually pretty big, 2017, 2022. And I say that's big because, of course, if the Mets go out and get him, they're going to want him for a World Series push. So you want that playoff experience. You want that World Series experience. And of course, the Astros were so dominant in the time that Bregman was there. They were basically in the playoffs every single season. So he definitely knows a thing or two and can teach the younger guys about the ropes of the postseason. Maybe some of those guys that are rookies this year for the Mets, or some of those guys that weren't with them in the 2024 postseason run last year. Bregman also won a Gold Glove. That was last season, and a Silver Slugger back in 2019. The 162 game averages are also really nice. 274, 366, 486 for an 852 OPS, and well above league average 133 OPS plus. Per 162 games that he plays in, he averages 28 homers, 97 RBIs, and has a 5.9 WAR, including a 1 WAR defensively, so he's a good defensive player, good for a career total WAR of 42.5. As you see on the bottom of your screen under games, he's played in 1,162 games out of a potential 1,339. That's really good. That's 87% of games that he's playing in, and averages 141 games per season, which is really, really solid. He's going to play a lot. He's going to be your everyday third baseman if you go out and get him. And here are the advanced metrics. Of course, they also look really, really good. Definitely about an average fielder, maybe a little bit above. He's got some good range. Not the best arm strength over there at third base, but the Mets really haven't had a great defensive third baseman since David Wright, so it's not like they're really losing anything if they go out and get Bregman in terms of the defense. And of course, those offensive numbers are great. Look at the chase rate. He doesn't chase. He doesn't whiff on the ball. He barely strikes out, draws a lot of walks, and he squares the ball up a ton. And when he hits the ball, it is hit hard. His exit velocity is really, really good. As you see, that walk rate is pretty solid, hovering around the 60th percentile in all of Major League Baseball. Back in 2019, he actually led the league in walks. Despite not even playing every single day, he missed 6 games that season and still led the league with 119 walks. And he led the league in WAR that season at 8.9. So definitely a great player that the Mets could go out and get in Alex Bregman. But it might take a lot, because with good players takes a lot of prospects. Let's go ahead and hear from the experts about what it would take to go out and get Alex Bregman. And today we're going to hear from Noah Wright of Rising Apple. He says, quote, regardless of whether or not he opts out for the 2026 season, remember he has that option that he can opt out for 26 and 27 and go test the free agent market. Bregman, being priced at just a rental, would still make a pricey trade target. If the Red Sox ultimately move Bregman, it would likely be for pitching. The Sox only have 3 starters this year with an ERA plus over 100 in 10 plus starts, and none are younger than 25. They also have little coming up through the minor leagues when it comes to pitching talent. Their 3 top pitching prospects per MLB Pipeline are all at AA, with only 1 having induced good results over at least 5 games started. So pitching is definitely a need, and pitching is a good thing for the New York Mets. They have a lot in their farm system, but of course, if you want to go out and get Bregman, you want to get a guy of his caliber and his talent, you're going to have to give up some of that minor league pitching and some of those pitching prospects. Wright goes on to say, quote, the Mets would have to put together a trade package headlined by a top pitching prospect. Brandon Sproat's value is down, and Jonah Tong is likely way too valuable for the Mets to consider moving him right now. Keep in mind, he is the 4th prospect in this New York Mets system, and he's only on the rise. He's really young, too, which leaves Nolan McLean as a prime candidate. I personally wanted McLean to come up yesterday when the Mets opted for Jonathan Pintaro. Unfortunately, he didn't pitch so well in the game against the Braves, but we won! Side note, we actually won a game. Yay! But I wanted McLean to come up. Looks like he's still going to be in that minor leagues. But, of course, he would be a prime candidate if the Mets go out and get Bregman. The right-hander has a solid season and is trending in the right direction, pitching to a 2.19 ERA, 3.83 FIP, and 1.16 WHIP across 70 innings at both Binghamton and Syracuse, recently promoted to AAA Syracuse. So the question now is, why exactly would this work? Or how could this work, I might say? Wright says, quote, the Mets need help at third base, especially considering Brett Baty has come back down to earth after looking like a breakout candidate earlier this year. However, Bregman's contract makes this difficult. The Mets could trade Nolan McLean plus more for what could ultimately end up being 2 months of Alex Bregman. Javi Baez deal, anyone? Where we gave up Pete Crow Armstrong, arguably the National League MVP this year. Anyway, to go on with the quote, unless the Mets feel they are an Alex Bregman away from at least a National League pennant, if not a World Series win, they could put the value of their prospects to better use. It would be a high-risk, high-reward gamble for the Mets to go after Bregman. Now, we actually have a potential trade, as this is what it would look like for the Mets to go out and get Alex Bregman potentially. It would take Brandon Sproat, a pitching prospect, number 61 overall in all of Major League Baseball, and the second prospect in our system. Drew Gilbert, who I know his name has been around a couple of times in some trade rumors. He's someone that we got in that Justin Verlander deal. So it's almost like you're not really flipping a prospect because you flipped an aging Verlander. You weren't going to keep him and you ended up getting Gilbert. So maybe it ends up being something along the lines of Verlander basically for Bregman plus the other prospect that was in the deal. Kind of something along those lines. And of course, the last player is Jacob Reimer, the number 17 overall prospect in the Mets system. But the problem I have with this potential trade is that the Red Sox are only getting one pitching prospect. We heard how badly they need pitching prospects in their minor league system, and this deal only gives them one pitching prospect. So I don't think this deal is nearly what you're going to have to give up for Alex Bregman. I think the deal is going to be a little bit different. And although the name is great, it would really solve this third base problem. I don't know if Bregman is necessarily the right option for the Mets at the trade deadline. I think they need to go out and get a catcher, like a Jose Trevino, someone that's got a good bat this year. Maybe go out and get a bat for the designated hitter spot. I know you got some guys coming back like Jesse Winker. I think for now, you can ride out the ship with Mark Vientos. But if the Mets go out and get Alex Bregman, I'm not going to be mad whatsoever because that's really going to start beefing up this lineup that really has nothing whatsoever from the 6 to 9 spots in the lineup. So I'm kind of 50-50. I don't really care how the Mets pursue Alex Bregman. If they indeed go for him, great. I think that would be awesome. But if they don't, I'm not necessarily mad. I think Mark Vientos is going to be back at some point, and he's going to be back to that 2024 Mark Vientos. I think that sophomore slump is bound to end sometime soon. So whatever the Mets do, I'm honestly fine with it in terms of Alex Bregman. But let me know, what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below. Should the Mets go out and get Alex Bregman? Would it be too much to give up? Is this a good deal that the Mets could indeed go out and make? Of course, we don't know if this will actually happen because it's not even the end of June yet and the trade deadline is still a month away. The Red Sox could get really hot and eventually be leading the division. They could be in the second or first wildcard spot. So we don't know if Bregman is actually going to be on the trade market. But if he is, would you want to go out and get him? Let me know down below. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you today. Thank you so much as always for watching, and let's go Mets.